Hi, this is a tutorial on how to do the factory design pattern. So the example that I want to use to show how a factory design pattern works is involving the gym example that we used in my SER 315 class. So this was the system class model that we were given, and as you can see, this entity type here, the martial art class entity class, is using a string attribute to show the category of which type of martial art class a single class would be. And this would be a very inefficient way to do this if you were actually implementing it. The reason this would be potentially inefficient is if there was any sort of difference between one category of class and another category of class, that would be very difficult to show. You would have to use a bunch of if-else statements in all the different methods that involve a difference, and it would get very complicated and very hard to manage. So the solution to this is to use what we call a factory design pattern. It is one of the creational design patterns, and it basically involves a factory class that handles all the difficulties involved in these different categories. So the example we can use is this one I created called a Mac. It uses a Mac interface, and this is basically going to hold the generic martial art class, and then any individual type of class is going to implement that interface. So we have, as an example, a jiu-jitsu class, a judo class, and a karate class, and all of them, of course, are going to override this schedule class method in the interface. And then over here we have our class factory, and this is where the real magic happens, where it actually decides, based on a certain input, what kind of class object to create. And so let's go to the code for this. So here we have the interface called, and here it calls the void schedule class method. It sets that up so that it can be overridden by by the classes that implement this. So for example, the judo class, here we see it implements Mac, and it overrides the schedule class method. And since we weren't given any requirements for these differences in the classes, I just have it printing out that we scheduled a judo class, but this is where you'd have the things that are specific to a judo class done. You know, maybe it posts to a blog that talks about judo classes, or maybe it notifies certain trainers who are involved in the judo classes. So there's a variety of different things you could do, but that's what really we do factory method or factory design for, is so that we have that flexibility to set out by themselves the individual types of class. So we do the same with karate class, same with jiu-jitsu class, and each one of these would have, in this area, something done a little differently. Of course, we could also have multiple methods, not just schedule class, but other methods as well that would exist in the interface and that could be implemented with the individual class type in mind. So then, as I said, here's our factory class, and this is where the real magic happens for actually creating the correct object. So I did it where you put in a string. Of course, this could be anything. We could have done an enum or really anything. There's a lot of different options for what you input, but what you output with these different returns, this is going to be what a factory is used for. It's a factory. It's creating different objects based on what kind you want, right? So it takes that creation of the objects kind of out of the hands, if you will, of the developer, and that is very useful. So I created a main that kind of shows a very simple implementation of this. So you would call the Mac object, and of course we don't know what kind of a Mac this is, right? Maybe it's a judo class, maybe it's a jujitsu class, but then we use the factory method getClass and we pass in right here judo. So this is where, again, it could be anything. It could have been an enum or clicking on a list on a UI or something. It could be a lot of different things, but this is where this factory then returns an object that in our case would be a judo class object. Okay, so each one of those prints that out, and then we call the schedule class to as a confirmation that each of these classes is the correct class we're actually wanting to run. So if we do a little call on this, if we run it, we can see the output is going to hopefully be different. So hopefully a judo class, another judo class, jujitsu class, and a karate class. And there we go, scheduled a judo class, scheduled a judo class, scheduled a jiu-jitsu class, and scheduled a karate class. So there we go. So it is working. Each of these objects is in fact different, even though it's called a Mac, right? Each one of these is using that interface Mac, and then it's returning the specific object to that to the type of class we want. So there we go. That's how factory design works.